Coach Helen for YouFit Studio. Right, now, what I'm going to cover today is kids and nutrition, okay? Now, we're going to cover sphere of influence on Monday, because actually that's quite a good one. So we're going to talk about kids and nutrition today. And some of you are like, oh, why? Why are we going to cover kids and nutrition today, and what's that about? And the thing is I talked about, at some point in summer, I talked about role modelling for children, what actually happens in terms of you and your children and your behaviours, etc. And one of the most common things I get with working with clients, and working with clients over a number of years as well, is firstly, without we kind of realising, they start to change the way the kids think about them. No matter what the age of the kid, they will start to mirror and copy their parents. Like, it could be, 10 years and younger, or in fact teenagers, right? Even kids in their 20s. We've had 20-year-old kids start to match and copy and even join part of the family, right, to look after their health and fitness. What does that mean about food? Okay, so how do kids and food come into play, right? Now, when I talked about it before, I talked about role modelling and how keeping fit and being healthy, etc., is role modelling for children, because it is, right? Whatever you do, think about your parents. Whatever your parents told you to do verbally, you would end up doing. But if you saw them do something, more likely than not, you're going to end up copying their behaviours. And it stands the same when it comes to nutrition, as well as with any other thing in life, right? It is about what you do and not what you say, right? So some of the things that people don't realise when they're, hey, Kate, this is good for you, Kate, with grandkids as well, by the way. So this is great. So I'm talking about role modelling, Kate. So you've joined us talking about role modelling. So I've talked about role modelling with behaviours before, about exercising and looking after health. And actually, though, when it comes to things like role modelling nutrition and how you deal with food in general, actually, kids are going to be role modelling you, whether you like it or not. They will be copying you. I have an online client from, I think she was May, June last year, and she sent me a fantastic photo. It was a video, sorry, it wasn't a photo, it was a video. It's a video of her daughter, who is 4, and her daughter was sitting at the table, and she was taking vegetables from her mum's plate onto hers, saying, I want mine to look colourful like yours, mummy, right? That was brilliant. That was absolutely fantastic. And that's a prime example of what you do is going to be what your kids copy, not what you say, right? And it goes for grandkids as well. You tell your kids not to eat sugary stuff, and yet you're doing the same, Kate, then that's what they're going to do. They're going to do what they see you do, not what you ask them to do, right? So think about how your parents were, right? Where did you learn your food behaviours from? Most likely, with most of us, it's our parents as well, right? How we were raised is how we tend to approach food a lot of the time. So some of the things to ask yourself, right, and we talk about this a lot, is actually from a habit point of view. Now, if you're a client of ours, you know this, but how slowly or fast you eat. See, Kate saying her granddaughter's doing it already, right? Fantastic. Get them while they're young. That sounds very wrong, but it is true. You get habits young, you're going to keep them, right? How slow or fast do you eat, right? Do you rush through a meal onto something else? Because guess what? If you do that, that's what your kids are going to do. So often when you have a client who has multiple children, the age of the child will always dictate how fast they eat. So let me expand on that a little bit. So say you've got a client who has 3 kids. The youngest kid will always be the kid that eats the slowest. As the age goes up, they'll be faster. Why? Because they've had more time watching how fast or slow their parents eat. So if you eat fast, expect your kids to be eating fast as well. What does that lead to? Watch or listen my Eating Slowly podcast episode to find out what happens. You gain weight, basically. But ultimately, slow eating enough, even from a young age, is enough, even from a habit point of view, to you start setting behaviours with your kids and grandkids about how to be healthy at your age in life, right? So think about that. Are you eating at the table, for example? Are you bringing it into a central part, even if it's the evening meal? Are you eating together, or are you eating distracted? Are you actually already dictating that watching the TV while eating is okay and acceptable, and for them to not be engaging in the food that they're eating, right? Like it or not, even if you're not a fan of sitting at the table, setting an example and role modelling those behaviours will ensure that your kid, when they get to your age again, will be in a potentially better position, right? Trying new food. Do you try new food? There's one. Do you try new food in front of your kids or grandkids? Keep saying grandkids, Kate, because you're there, right? Do you? Or do you turn your nose up at stuff? Like it or not, right? Kids are so clever, they're so spongy, they see everything, right? So if they see you not trying new food, not trying new vegetables, not trying new this, that, this, getting really rigid with food, what are they likely to do? They're likely to be rigid and picky with food, right? Do you focus on food that makes you feel good or even 80% full? Do they hear you talking about it, see you match those behaviours, right? Do they do that? So let's look at it the flip side, right? What if you've got a kid who is really tricky with food or grandkid? Just put it in. Keep putting it in. What if you have someone who is actually a kid who is actually quite you're quite challenged with food and you don't know how to actually now wind back time? What if they're not? If I talk about the family of four, what if they're not the youngest child anymore? What if they're the oldest child and you're really struggling to bring nutrition into the home and how to talk about really good food? Now, depending on the age of the child, obviously, there's some things you can do which are actually really fantastic and do work with, when I've worked with clients, if they're struggling in households with making transitions for themselves and involving the family. There is some great stuff you can do, right? This is one of my personal favourites, maybe because of people who know me know my love for all things geeky in a non-cool way. You can make food about superpowers. I love this one, right? So some of the examples I've heard parents talk about, and this worked with my client who was working with a 4-year-old, right? So greens, I actually tried this one. Greens makes you more healthy and less sick, right? So if you eat your greens, you'll be less time sick, right? Healthy fats, right? If you eat these fats, they'll make you smarter. And this is usually for boys. There's some girls as well. If you eat this protein, you're gonna get really strong. It used to be spinach. I'm sure it used to be spinach with Popeye. My mum and dad. You'd be like Popeye, like, yeah. Can I get it? You ever see spinach in a can? No, that's by the by. I've never seen spinach in a can. Same. Make food about superpower, then you can sell it to your kids. So if you sell them that actually you're going to get a visual. I was thinking about a kid that would think they want to see, oh my god, yeah, I can be really like strong and muscle like Superman if I eat my proteins, eat my veggies, I'm going to be like super healthy, I'm never going to get ill, I'm never going to get a sniffy nose, etc. Get your kids involved in that kind of way of thinking when it comes to food, and you'll be surprised about how willing they are to get involved. And actually on the topic of getting involved, it's fantastic to get kids involved with planning food, right? Now it could be you get them involved in planning the shopping list. Like if you've unfortunately been the person who's been quite picky with their food and they've copied you, right? And now you're like, oh hell, so what do I get them to eat? Getting them involved in shopping and saying, okay, actually, what would you like to cook this week? Like if you're going to get involved, what would you like me to get in the shopping list? What would you like to eat this week? Now, you can assume they might keep saying the thing that makes them comfortable. However, if you actually get them involved in planning around the meal, again, you'll be surprised at how much you can draw out of them and how much they will get involved in it. Even get them to pick recipes. I've had people pick recipes. Now, also, this is another one as well that again, it is what it is, right? And I think it's fantastic for families to do this. When people say, oh, pizza is bad, you can't eat pizza. Well, guess what? If you're making a pizza with your kid and that's what your kid loves, but then you can get them involved in picking the pizza topping, right? You're already you're bringing your child into eating something they actually do really want to eat anyway, because I want to eat pizza. I don't have a kid yet doesn't want to eat pizza. But also you can help diversify their existing diet by adding things onto the pizza topping. So get them involved in making and cooking things together, things they actually love. Like make it from scratch, make it as a family. And again, making them then involved in the process changes their behaviours toward foods itself. This one I talk about a lot. I always talk about this with a brand new client, like doesn't matter. Always talk about, well, I've talked about this as well, the food continuum, right? Whatever you call it. Got it continuum. I think I called it spectrum this morning. The food continuum, right? So being that if you will talk about foods yourself in front of kids saying that's bad for you, you shouldn't be eating, that's bad, or eat something better, or eat something good, this is good for you. What happens is that often they will then make the same associations when they're older as well. So this is good, this is bad for me, and then they'll be starting to list black and white foods in their heads, and it just, as small and subtle as that is, that can have a huge impact on a child later down the line, or not even that later down the line. It just impacts kids and their behaviours towards food. and actually can create more challenges than not later down the line for you if you're trying to diversify their food, if they misunderstand what good or bad is. So being aware of your language with your kids or grandkids will make a huge difference to when they get a little bit older, and hopefully not having to speak to us, right? And this again, I talked about, these are all the ones I talk a lot about parents with. There's a lot of pressure. Okay, let me rephrase that. Parents put a lot of pressure on themselves for kids to eat perfectly, or to always be eating the absolute perfect meal, or if they don't eat something, somehow they failed at that meal time, for example, or it's a battle. I hear a lot, it's a fight every meal. Have you heard of that? It's a fight meal time. Every meal is a fight, right? To try and get them to eat something. At the end of the day, and this is again because I've worked with clients for long with their kids is when it comes to nutrition, there's always stages, right? There's stages with all children they'll go through where they're like fight back, but they will always move forward and grow out of it. The thing is the parent often loses the will before the kid, right? Kids are stubborn as hell, and again they'll always do the opposite of what you say. They'll just copy what you do. So you just know that their appetite will change as they grow. The kids will always want to win out. They want to win out the pressure each meal, yes. It's okay sometimes to lose the fight and win the war, right? Sometimes using all the other stuff that I've just talked about, or thinking about the overall balance. It's the same way I talk to an adult about nutrition as well, right? Not every meal has to be perfect. Not every meal is meant to cover everything and be fantastic and has to be cleared and nothing left and no fights about everything, or everything's meant to be out slowly. You know, as adults, we don't put the pressure on ourselves to do that, because we don't. And when parents often think that that's how the kids' meal should be, that's where sometimes it can turn into a battle of wills. I like to hear that as well. It's a battle of wills. I'll get her to eat. So the thing is that it doesn't have to be that way, right? It doesn't have to. It's just looking at it slightly differently and understanding that the biggest influence you'll have is actually on your actions, like I said, and not what you say or ask them to eat. So, we're going to recap this one, right? Very briefly. Right, and I'll tell you what I'm talking about next week, because I'm quite excited about next week's one. I almost did it today, because I was so excited, right? So, number one, be a role model, right? Be a role model for your kids and grandkids. You have no idea how much they are copying all your behaviours. Like Kate's already saying, like Rose isn't even one yet. She's coming on one, surely, and she's already copying behaviours. And it doesn't matter how many times I've worked with clients, it's amazing how kids copy stuff without us even knowing. Until they do it, and they go, oh, that's really cute, yeah. Guess what? They do that with all your food choices and everything else as well. All the stuff that you don't even think about, they are absorbing like sponges and repeating, right? Think about the things I covered over. So how are you with your parents, right? With your food. Where did you learn your food? Think about what you want to pass on. Sunday. Kate's saying Sundays. What was that? The roast dinner. How are you as a parent? Do you eat slowly, right? If you're rushing your food, they will be rushing their food too. Always the same rule applies. I'll recap it. You've got multiple kids. The younger the kid, the slower they'll eat. As they get older, they'll be more aware of how you eat, and so they will be eating faster. Sense check. It's very rare it's out. If I ever get a new client, I say, always eat to the youngest or the oldest person speed-wise in your household. Funny that, because they're always like, oh, but the youngest is so slow. I'm like, yes. They're eating appropriately, right? So, oh, she's one on Sunday. Oh, I apologise, Kate. I was like, oh, she's having Sunday roast. She's one on Sunday. I knew it was coming. Just knew it, Kate, knew it. So how would you parent? Try new food yourself. You know, again, it's difficult to ask a child to try new food when you're also quite picky with your food yourself, and you don't diversify on it. Focus on, even for yourself, foods that make you feel good, and guess what, kids will be doing the same. And also, if you talk about not being full as a gun, or, you know, going to burst the barrel, like going to 80%, then guess what, they're going to do that too. Make foods. When you talk about foods with kids, they love it when you talk about it like superpowers. Like protein will build your muscles, greens will keep you healthy, right? I think my mum talked about fish used to make you brainy. Yeah, I think my mum used that with me, and I do actually eat fish, to be fair. It's one of the things I still occasionally hang on to even when I'm vegetarian, right? Still do it. So get them involved in planning. So planning might be planning recipes, planning meals, planning the food shopping, right? Get them involved in the whole process so they see that they are part of it. And even if they're adding just one thing that's just like maybe what you would have added, so it's not sweets all the time, right? That's okay. It's the process of getting them involved that will really be useful for them as they grow up, right? You just do not understand how much they'll suck up. Avoid the good versus bad, right? In your own language when you're talking about food. Because again, guess what? They'll copy that. And only I've also had, vice versa, right? When I talked about the parent who had the kids say, "Oh, you should more colour. I want more colour on my plate." Also, you know, you can find yourself later on being told off. I've had kids tell parents off. Now, it's because they say, "Oh, mummy, it's bad. You're eating bad food. It's bad food, mummy, or bad food, dad. You shouldn't be eating that." Now, that's because they've learned good or versus bad. Now, what we talk about and always talk about is a continuum. Nothing's good or bad. It's just a choice you're making, right, in consideration of your whole diet. So be aware you can find yourself in a situation being told off by your own kids. Never good. And I've also probably got a point, right? And at the end of the day, take the pressure off yourself. Not every meal is meant to be perfect. They're not going to be scraping the plate with broccoli. You know, not going to ask for seconds of sprouts every single time. It's only me that does that and I'm weird, right? It's how it is meant to be. They will change, the taste will change. They may have tantrums, they may have fights. It's okay to occasionally let them take the small fight if you can win the war overall using a lot of these other tactics. So you know, give and take along the way, it will get better. It always gets better, right? So, now I'm back next Monday. Okay, so next Monday I'm back with, we're going to love this. Sphere of influence. Now, if you caught my one from yesterday where I talked about, look at Rick up again, right? Positive mental attitude, we'll call it, I think, or the way you think about things. Monday's going to be about your sphere of influence. So what's in your sphere of influence? What is and what is outside? I'm going to break them all down into small bits and go, this is what you're doing, this is what you can't do, and this is what you need to do, right? So sphere of influence, that's going to be a good one. So the whole weekend, think about how to expand that one even more, right? So join me for that one on Monday. And in the meantime, if you have actually, because I was the thing, I've worked with so many clients and their kids over the years, like unwittingly, it's not just them going, "How do I do?" I was like, try this, right? So if you are having any challenges, then always drop me a message and I'll be happy to help. In the meantime, have a fantastic evening and weekend, and I will catch you on Monday.